We are recording. All right, hello, good morning, everyone, for joining us for the Spring 2021 Nonprofit Management Institute. We're delighted to have so many of you with us today. We have a group of about 45 participants, and we'll be joining up for the next 5 Tuesdays to learn about all of these wonderful topics that are ahead of us. You're in for a treat this morning. We have some special guests with us, and we have Dr. Palmer, our facilitator, with us. We will get here and have Jean go ahead and give our welcome along with Steve and Tanaya.
Good morning, everyone. I just had to make sure am I unmuted, Rebecca?
You're good.
Good morning, everyone. This is really so exciting for me. I'm Jean Tedrow, the President and CEO of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. And I'm really excited to be here with you all this morning in partnership with the Triangle Community Foundation and Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, bringing this to all of you as a partnership, working together to build capacity in our nonprofit sector. This is our second Nonprofit Management Institute. We set the bar pretty high the last time, and we're really excited to be offering this to you again. Of course, we're really pleased to have with us as our facilitator, Dr. Pamela Palmer, and she has really shown us the way on our principles and practices guidebook for effective nonprofit management. A stellar practitioner herself. She knows the way, and she is going to lead us throughout this program this morning and for each Tuesday during March. So lean in and enjoy the morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. And we also have with us Tanaya Cedric Lynch with the Triangle Community Foundation. They've been a great supporter of this program and the center, and wanted to have Tanaya say a quick hello and welcome everyone.
Good morning, everybody. As Jean and Rebecca said, I am Program Officer at Triangle Community Foundation. And I'm also one of the funder partners in the Triangle Capacity Building Network, which is a funder collaborative dedicated to building the capacity of nonprofits here in the Triangle. And so often capacity building is overlooked when nonprofit organizations are funded. Donors and funders focus on projects that may seem more tangible instead of focusing on the vital strategic work that supports organizations over time. And so TCF and TCBN are both committed to changing our philanthropic behavior to prioritize funding for nonprofits for capacity building and organizational strengthening, and championing organizations that are ready to work on their internal processes, procedures, plans, and their people. And so for that reason, we are really excited to be in partnership with the NC Center to offer this institute so that you all are gaining knowledge and skills to continue to build your own organization's internal capacity. So thank you all for being here, and just look forward to these weeks of learning.
Thank you, Tanaya. Thanks for being with us and for all your support. And we also have Steve Hayes, Director of Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, joining us as well. Steve, you want to say hello real quick?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Hayes with the Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, and we're a collaborative of nonprofits across Guilford County and surrounding areas who come together to work on capacity building ourselves for our community. And I'd like to tell you that this institute started as a collaborative effort between High Point University, the Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, and the Hayden Harmon Foundation, and that Dr. Palmer, who you're about to meet, has been here from the beginning. This was a program that we've been very proud to present, and are even more proud now that we're able to present it as a supporting partner to the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. When the pandemic happened, 3 things became very evident. One is that we were not going to have an institute on the campus of High Point University. And 2, we did not have the bandwidth to deliver this institute, but there was an organization that did. And that was the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. And it gave us the ability to have a statewide institute that standardized what best practice was across North Carolina. So we are grateful to be a supporting partner with the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. And we understand clearly how important it is now that we have that central entity to help coordinate the work of nonprofits across North Carolina. So you are in for a treat. Dr. Palmer has forgotten more about nonprofits than I could ever hope to know. And we welcome you to the Institute. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate all your support. It's great to see your faces. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just mention that obviously we're using Zoom for this for our platform for this series. We'll be sharing with you how to use certain engagement tools that Zoom provides as we use them. If you do need to do so, and I'm reminded that I need to do so to update my name that you see here, you see North Carolina Center, that's me. I'm going to go ahead and update my name. I'm Rebecca Beck. I'm the education manager here at the center. So if you need to do that, feel free to do that. You go over to your name and you click on the box that says more and you rename your name. But I think everyone's got their name up there for now. We might have some that have some blurred names. So feel free to go ahead and update that if you will, and we'll get rolling here. Dr. Palmer, would you like to say hello and kick us off?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I am Pamela Palmer, and I am your facilitator for the Nonprofit Management Institute. As you know, we will be together for the month of March every Tuesday. And we will begin today with our orientation. But before we get started into the content, we want to go through just a little process of doing some introductions with you. So we could the agenda for today is for us to focus on the capacity building framework for the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. You have received components of the principles and practices, content, and educational capacity building material that we will use. We'll focus on the principles. There are 12 of those. We will also focus on identifying the current management condition of your nonprofit. And we will look at that by reviewing and understanding and learning 3 frames: build, thrive, and sustain. We will also go through a process of assessing capacity and guiding you through that process to help you assess the capacity of your nonprofit, so that as we go through the training material in the upcoming weeks, you will be able to grow and develop in a way that will help you enhance your capacity when you complete the Institute. We will also look at several practices that align with our principles. As I mentioned before, there are 12 principles. We will hone in on 6 of those. You will share with us your view and give us feedback on your experience with the Institute, and then today, and then we will close out. So this is a participatory workshop series. The Institute is designed to have you practice while we are learning. And so we build upon each of the sessions each week. So that's our agenda for today. So I'm going to let Rebecca kind of share with you how to use a feature that is a part of Zoom. And we want you to identify where you are currently as you are engaging in this virtual institute. I am in Jamestown, North Carolina, which is Guilford County. So I'm kind of in the middle of the state. So Rebecca, I'll let you guide everyone.
Sure thing. As you'll see on the screen here, we have state of a map of our lovely state with all the counties. If you'll go ahead and go up to the top of your Zoom screen, you'll see view options. You can scroll down to the word annotate. You'll click on that. You can pick maybe a certain stamp that you'd like to. I see the heart went up there for Wake County, and you can go ahead and add your stamp to the county that you're currently in, and we'll start to see annotated on here where folks are based. Looks like we've got a lot here in Central. Oh, there's one out by the coast. So it's really nice to be able to see this in real time, see where folks are working and living. Lovely. That's great. We got some Rowan, Albemarle, Wake. Nice.
A lot of us are in the center, in the
Yeah.
middle of the state there.
Yeah, very nice. Very good. All right, I think everyone's participated, hopefully. If you weren't able to, for some reason, if you couldn't find the annotate, you can always add it into the chat. We'll be using the chat a lot. So that's a great way for you to ask questions or to add content if you're not able to do the annotation for some reason. Great. Oh.
I see some are adding to the chat. And we will use the annotate feature throughout the workshop series. So if you weren't able to get comfortable with it just now, we'll be using it as we move along. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and clear all those and we will continue on. Yeah. All right.
So let's just talk a little bit about, or let me share a little bit about kind of our framework for building capacity. Oftentimes I'm asked the question, well, what is capacity and what is capacity building? What does that really mean? And when we think about the capacity of a nonprofit, oftentimes we are focused on the ability, or I like to say the agility of a nonprofit to perform or to do what it's designed to do. And when we build capacity, we do that by engaging in, sometimes it's training like we're doing here with the Institute. Other times it is receiving on-site technical support or assistance in working in partnership with a capacity builder. And by the way, there are about 4 or 5 different, well, probably more than that, maybe a dozen or more capacity building networks around the state that the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits is in partnership with. And we'll talk more about that too as we go along. But this idea of capacity building, it happens in the context of training and development. It also happens or occurs as it relates to technical assistance or support, and as well as consulting and coaching. And so it just depends on what the need of your nonprofit is as to what type of capacity building you might decide that you want to bring on board or you want to add to how you are growing and developing your nonprofit. Well, the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits has a capacity building framework. And we begin with our principles and practices guide. And all of you have access to that either electronically or in a hard copy form. I'm still a little old school, so I use a hard copy form most of the time when I'm utilizing the principles and practices guide. So we have 12 principles that we focus on. We look at the management condition and we assess that. And then we decide how we're going to engage in some capacity building practices to help us kind of grow and develop. So as we're learning about the 6 principles, and we'll get into those in a moment, as we're learning about those and how to engage in doing the work that make up those principles, we are operating out of this framework. So here is a image of the first, if you open up the cover of the Principles and Practices Guide, you will see that there's a page there that highlights how to use the guide. And there, like as I mentioned before, we have 12 principles, and each of the principles have an accompanying practice, like a primary practice. And then to support those, there are 3 different management conditions: build, thrive, and sustain. And the idea is, again, to assess where we are in terms of our capacity and then determine what we want to change or what we want to modify. And so we will, as I said before, we'll highlight all 12, but we will learn more about 6 of these in the Institute. Are there any questions about, go back for me, yeah. Are there any questions about what you see here? Now, we're gonna go into more detail with each one, but I didn't know if there were any thoughts before I continue. And you can make comments in the chat, or you can unmute if you like.
I glanced at this just before the before we got started this morning. I really like how it's set up to be able to look at kind of where you sit and maybe where you could be. Thank you for putting this together.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
That's great. Thanks, Thomas.
Okay.
I don't think we have any other comments in the chat. But I wanted to quick interject and mention that we forgot to introduce Leslie, our woman behind the curtain. And that was my bad, actually. So Leslie actually is with us. She's helping to facilitate the screen for you all, the screen share and all the PDFs. And she came on board as a CSR intern last year, right before the pandemic, right as we were kicking off the wonderful pandemic that we're in. So and she came on board, helped us to compile this training and put it together. And she was and still is Dr. Palmer's right-hand woman. We're delighted to have her on staff now as our nonprofit services assistant. And she'll be here with us for the first hour and a half. And she's still actually in school. She's finishing out her last semester. So I will take over halfway through. I won't do near as good of a job as she does, but thanks for hanging in there with me. And Leslie, thanks and dedication to this.
Okay,
oh,
great.
she says,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Rebecca, can we do the gallery view as we go into this next part of our work? So the first thing that we're gonna begin with is, oh, now I can see everybody at one time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of get an intro to the 12 principles. So in your packet of information that was sent to you, the very first page of that is titled 12 Principles Worksheet. So just off the top, when you think about what we should focus on when we're trying to enhance the way we manage our nonprofit organizations, what comes to mind for you? And if you would list them on that sheet. So what comes to mind for you? And kind of one item, they're numbered, your lines there are numbered 1 to 12. And so what comes to mind for you? What is it, if we're going to be as effective as we could possibly be, if we're going to be as strong as we could possibly be, what would be those areas of managing a nonprofit that you think deserves some special attention in order for that nonprofit to be extraordinary, if I could say? And I'm just going to give you a couple minutes to work on that and think about that. Do you have 12 yet, or do you need more time? Okay. Okay, I think I can move on. So Rebecca, do you want to share with us how we're going to get feedback and find out what everyone put on their list?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and share a link in the chat that you all can respond to. Grab it here. And what you're going to do is go ahead to click on this link, and you'll be answering the question. And what it'll do is it will, hold on, it's not going to work. Here we go. It will compile all these words, and it will make what's called a word cloud or a word map that we all can look at when it's shared. So go ahead and try to click on that link there in the chat and give me a thumbs up if you're able to pull up that link. Hopefully it's been activated.
I don't see a link.
No link.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. It just went to Elizabeth. Let me send to everyone. My bad. Here we go. Technology. Okay. Here we go. And the question, Dr. Palmer, do we want them to just enter their top 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
You're not going to enter all 12. You're just going to enter the 3 that you had in your top tier there.
Yep.
Okay, let's try that link now. Elizabeth got a head start on y'all.
So yes, you're going to enter your top 3 areas of management that your opinion, that is, as to what the focus would need to be as we look at improving the way we manage nonprofit organizations.
I'm going to go ahead and share the screen so you can see them coming together here.
Sure.
Let's see. Share this. All right. coming in.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do a full screen here.
It says the poll is full.
Oh, wow.
Do we fill it up that quickly?
Yeah. So I didn't enter anything and it already said full.
It,
Oh,
I
wow.
refreshed and it let me enter, but I got that
Okay.
response too.
Okay.
I don't think we had that the first time we did this.
No, we did not.
Yeah.
I'm,
I had typed in 2 individual, and then I thought I was supposed to maybe do all 3 at the same time, so I deleted those. And now I can't.
I wasn't able to get any in at all.
yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
have a red stop sign. I can't do anything.
Oh, wow.
That's strange.
We have mobbed the poll everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're using the free
platform.
version, so maybe there's a limit here.
Yeah, I have a red little stop sign as well, so.
What does they like? Changes. Well, how about this? As you all look at this word map, maybe there are ones that you have on your list that aren't included on here. Go ahead and populate those in the chat. If your particular word or function is not up on the Wordle as you see it. Start to see some of them come in. Oh, good. I see EDI.
Yeah, I see compliance there.
Yep.
Yeah. Relationship building for sure.
These are awesome.
The person that put artistic value, can you just share a little bit if you don't mind? Or you can opt out if you want, but
fine. I am the executive director of a small nonprofit theater. And so, of course, for us, wanting to make sure that we uphold our artistic value to the community of what we present and what we put on a stage.
I see. Thank you. I see more coming in, Rebecca, so we'll keep. And I saw trauma informed, with all of us, in a lot of cases, we're essential workers in this pandemic, depending upon what type programs we're offering. And so, having to interact with our participants in our programs, and they're experiencing, they're having traumatic experience. But how about this? Some of our colleagues that work in the nonprofit sector are also having some traumatic, are being traumatized as a side effect of the pandemic. So that's definitely something that's very real to a lot of us, depending upon what kind of programs you offer. Self-care, I see that. Yes. I don't know, I think I saw a couple of folks in the class from High Point, and in High Point, there's a nonprofit now called High Point Resilience, or Resilience High Point. And there is an element of the work that they're doing as a collaborative network of nonprofits around self-care of nonprofit professionals and the work that they do. So that's definitely an area that we need to lift up, as we have learned that it's definitely needed more than we ever thought. So I can see here, Rebecca, that what has emerged in the word cloud is finances, financial management. I see the board. And then there is some competing, if you look at the size of some of the focal points or areas of focus, we see there are some competing items here. Staff seems to be kind of coming next. I see human, leadership, strong. Those seem to be coming next. And then we've got quite a few of competing areas or management functions that are important to lead and manage our nonprofit agencies. Excellent.
Great.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks. So, you know, one of the areas that we, as I mentioned before, that is an essential part of our framework at the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits are the principles. So we wanted to start the Institute off by introducing us to those and spending a little bit of time learning more about what we intend to convey as it relates to how to manage nonprofits. So just behind the worksheet that you just completed, is a page titled Principles and Practices Definition. And what we want you to do is to compare and contrast your list with our list. So as I'm going through some of these, we want you to indicate or share, and you can unmute yourself as you see fit, but to share your list compared to our list. So which functions do you see that are different? Is there anything on your list that's different than what our list has? So our first principle is advocacy and civic engagement. Now, these are in alphabetical order, not in terms of priority. So advocacy and civic engagement is our first principle. Board governance is our second principle on our list. Equity, diversity, and inclusion is the third. Financial management, fundraising, human resources, information and technology, legal compliance and transparency. And as I'm going through these, remember the word cloud and what we saw kind of populate. Partnerships and collaboration. You heard Steve and Tanaya and Jean talk about how they have partnered to offer this institute statewide. And that is definitely an example of how impactful we can be and how we can expand our bandwidth when we partner and collaborate. Program design, management, and evaluation is the next one. Strategic communication and strategic planning. Would anyone like to share any item that you had on your list that we have not touched on in this list? I see Thomas's hand going up.
I had facilities on there as well. I think I covered most of the ones that are here, but I maybe worded or partnered different. I think I put fundraising and finances together, but I do think facilities is something that we spend an awful lot of time managing.
Thomas, what's the name of your organization? Just give us a little kind of quick second of who you're representing today.
Yeah, I'm with the Poe Center for Health Education, and we have a field trip destination site in Raleigh. You know, we travel and do virtual programming as well, but we do have a facility that that requires an awful lot of attention.
Okay. So facilities management is an area that we don't have on our list, Rebecca and Leslie. Anyone else? Is there anything you have on your list that we don't have on our list? And pay attention to the description of the practices, the main practice. So that's the primary practice for that particular principle on your worksheet.
I think we got some hands raised. Nicole,
Oh,
would you
okay.
like to share? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. I've centered, I guess, some of mine on the actual person, so, you know, things like conviction and having humility, being self-aware and reflecting. I focused on that because I feel that if you don't have the right, I don't know how to say this, but the right a person could be great with program management and have a lot of name recognition and all that, but if they don't have strong conviction, and I put in quotes instigator, because I, am an instigator. I want to make change and not sit around and let people think it's okay to do X, Y, and Z. And so I feel like the kind of the character and the how the person is, it kind of can drive all of this stuff. So even if you're not great at program management, that really to me is be key, the kind of person you have in those roles.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you.
I'll share.
Yes, Terry.
I had organizational structure. So I think it could probably fit under human resources, but I don't know, for some reason, org charts always pique my interest. And it's funny that I bring this up because I am like the only paid employee of the foundation I work for, a family foundation. But in a way, it's almost more difficult when you're a team of one in terms of structure and the people you're working with, who are either volunteers or contractors, or your board, which are volunteers. So that was just one. I feel it's important, and I'm just always interested in organizational structure.
Thank you.
I have a question. I have a comment, if I may. Anna Kuchagova. I think what I'm missing also is like the operations kind of the efficiencies and the base for having all the needs from operational perspective of nonprofit will need to have in order to be successful, such as I mean, IT kind of could be like a separate principle, but kind of operational controls, and then also the tools what you need, like some software. I mean, the building management or whatever also could be included. If you're going to have any particular needs in computers and office equipment and something like that, so from kind of operational perspective, it's kind of missing a component.
Rebecca, to that point, can you share just a little bit about the NC Center's website and how there's additional information that our participants can find as it relates to the principles, yes, but also as it relates to some of the specific difference from our list and their list, just where they can find that on the website?
Are you referring to like Information Central and
yes,
like that?
Yes.
So for members, certainly they can go into their account and access Information Central, which is a curated list of different topics, and they're grouped by, you can search by principle, or you can find other resources that may fall under these other categories that you're mentioning. And then certainly there are money saving partners will be helpful in terms of tech and things like that. But I do think some of these software and things like that could fall under IT. Sorry, there's some construction in front of my house right now. They're installing Google Fiber, and today of all days in front of our house. So it's happening, it's all happening. But certainly I think some of those things that you mentioned, Anna, could fall under this facilities category, right? And especially now when we're in the pandemic mode and people are, I know for the center, our office is we scaled down in terms of the size of our facilities. So, and that's changed because we're not there all the time. So there are things we may not be aware of that we find out later on. So it's kind of complicated things a little bit, I think.
Well, I'm not talking about only the IT type of, I'm talking about tools that you need for organizational perspective, like creating the base, the infrastructure, if you will. Talking about whether you select to have a QuickBooks or any other accounting software, whether how you're going to manage your like a time expense reimbursements and things like that. You know, whether you're going to have like a copier machine versus a postage machine versus, it's like creating like an infrastructure for the organizations to kind of to be successful, to have your employees to have the tools they need. Could be, you know, various tools. Could be IT, could be something like, you know, HR, or it's just like a more broader, what I'm talking about, a more broader perspective than just like focus on facilities or on IT.
Anna, one of the elements of our framework, in terms of when we designed it and put it together, we put it together in some ways very similar to what you're describing. So if you think about the 12 principles as infrastructure pieces of the puzzle, right, of setting up that nonprofit, we consider these kind of fundamental. So these are fundamental to managing any nonprofit, whether it's like the one I started at my kitchen table, right? That's grassroots and one of a kind, and there's no other one like it. Or if it is, you know, a YMCA or a YWCA organization. So these 12 principles, and there are additional ones, as we've heard already. We could add more for sure. But to your question about setting up the operations, this is a starting point. So we view this as the foundation of that infrastructure that you are describing. And that if you work to have in practice elements of these 12 principles, then you're on your way to setting up that very infrastructure that you talk about. Now, when you look at these 12 principles, it's also important to recognize that all of our nonprofits are different. So there's no one size fits all. It's going to be customized based on, I think you said, you know, whether we should use QuickBooks or whether we should have a standalone copier, or whether we should have, should you purchase online QuickBooks, or should you have the desktop version, or, you know, those kinds of things are going to be customized to meet your needs and your budget, right? So it's not going to be the same for all of those organizations. But again, when we began to kind of research and began to revisit these principles, with the exception of 2, have been with the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits for probably well over 20 years, I would say. And so these are the fundamentals. This is a place for you to start. And if you look across most any nonprofit, whether it is intentional or it just happens, right, that there will be work across these areas. And so hopefully this will help to kind of create that foundation for you. And then you can begin to kind of build out from that in terms of building your capacity as it relates to your nonprofit and making it more customized. So that's really kind of how it goes. The other thing I would say, and I'm glad you raised the question, because it's important to have this explanation, I think, for us at the beginning. Think about it as well as, you know, nonprofits are enterprises. You know, we conduct business every day, and there's some elements of what we do that are very much like a business. And so you might have, you know, ABC business, business A and business B, right, in the same, let's just say, on the same block. They're both businesses. They may even both sell the same merchandise, but they are set up very differently, and they might use different mechanisms. They're all managing their finances, but they may use a different mechanism. So please continue to kind of kind of ask me questions about that, because that is exactly what our aim is here in this institute, is to give you the foundational pieces so that you can begin to build out your infrastructure. Does that help?
That sounds good. Thanks.
All right, great. Any other questions about the principles? So I see there's a little bit of chatting going on, Rebecca, in our chat.
Yes, yes. And we did have some hands raised. I think
Oh, okay.
Angela and Veronica, I see the hands have gone down, so maybe your question isn't answered or you were able to add it in the chat, but feel free to chime in if you'd like to.
Sure, thank you. This is Veronica Oakler. I'm the new executive director for Clean Water for North Carolina. So I have some major shoes to fill. And really what I've seen has worked really well for my organization is flexibility. And I think that's what has made just about every nonprofit that's still alive today and every small business, the fact that we have been flexible to make it through a lot of these changing times. And I think it's kind of overarching over all of these principles as well. It kind of fits within each of the categories. But you know, if we're going to meet our goals and help the people in the communities we're trying to help, we need to be flexible.
I think I saw Scott raising his hand, Rebecca.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but I mentioned board management, which I feel is very different than board governance. And I'm the new director of Family Promise of Wake County. Been here 4 months. I've been in the state 8 months. I retired from Ohio and moved here. I've been at ED though for 23 years and found how important the individual relationship building with each board member. Like I have a new board chair that started in January. He's a first-time board chair, so the learning curve is there. How you bring, you know, the board chair along, cultivating those relationships. Because say if you have 10 board members, then each person is 1/10 your boss, and how you manage that, and also helping boards realize that not every decision needs to be unanimous. But just kind of that board kind of engagement and helping to recruit new board members. So I see that it's very different than governance, which is the clear transfer of power and responsibility and evaluation and all that. So thank you.
Thank you for that comment. You know, I oftentimes hear from executive directors who want their boards to be more active, right? And they want them to be more engaged. I mean, that is a common, you know, how do I do that? What, you know, where do I begin? And the way I'm gonna kind of share my response to that today, because, you know, things change, right, from day to day. And we learn, you know, from our experiences, and we learn from putting some of what we are trained on in practice. But what I'm seeing is that it may be necessary for us to make a shift from, let's just say, in 3 ways, right? So this idea that boards are constantly changing because you've got people coming on, people are leaving, you know, terms are expiring, your chairs may be rotating out every year. So we know that that transitioning is happening and it's changing. Now, there's some things you can do about that. You can change the way your terms are set up so you don't have as much change as often, and you can utilize your board members and their skills and talent a little longer than a year. Let's just say if you're talking about officers and or just being members. So this idea of boards transitioning. We have talked about, to Scott's point, I think it was Scott, right? That just made the comment. We have focused for a very long time on board governance and development, or board development and board governance. I think that it's probably a good time for us to add another element in there. Once we kind of get the idea of how to develop a board, meaning get people to the table, then how do we help that board become I'm going to borrow from the business community here for a moment. How do we get those boards to be a high performance team? How do we do that? And we'll talk about some of that as we move forward in the Institute, but it's this idea of changing our mindset about how we support board members and help board members become more engaged. It's not an automatic that I, as your board member, am going to be engaged as you need me to be. Because probably if I'm on your board, I'm probably doing other things and I'm probably very busy. So one of the things that I always encourage executive directors to do is ask your board members to do something specific as opposed to the blanket statement of, I need a more active board, I need a more engaged board. We'll get into more of that detail when we talk about board governance next week. But this is something that I think, well, first of all, I think the pandemic has moved us to make the change by default. But we do, I think, need to be a little bit more intentional about that. So thank you for that question. Before we move on to our next part of our time together, Rebecca, are there any more items in the chat or any hands being raised? Or
I don't see any. We've had some great content just going up in the chat. It's a great way to share with others and have sort of sidebar conversations. So I'm happy to see that happening. So thanks everyone for participating. This is already a great group.
Great. Okay, so as we're going to move on to the next item, and then I think we'll probably take a break after we do this next piece of work. So our next area of focus is the 3 management conditions, and you have in your packet a document titled Principles and Practices, Approach and Framework. Does everybody have that? So this is a focus on just looking at the current management condition of your nonprofit. And we have framed this around in 3 ways: build, thrive, and sustain. And so we've labeled this or put this together as an approach and framework for understanding the current condition of a nonprofit's management capacity. Each principle, as we've discussed, has a unique description for build, thrive, and sustain. So there's just kind of general understanding of that. And so when you look at build, you know, the focus here is the basics. You know, so it's intentional whenever we complete the 1023 application to obtain our 501c3 tax exemption. You know, that helps us to be identified as a nonprofit. And so there are some legal requirements and there are some things that we need to have in place in order for us to operate, you know, as a nonprofit. So that's kind of the current condition around build overall. And then, of course, as it relates to current condition, here we're looking at some specifically, the nonprofit is demonstrating a working knowledge of its ability to govern, its ability to provide oversight to its programming, its ability to be engaged or performing some of these very principles that we're talking about in terms of nonprofit management. And it's demonstrated in the way the nonprofit is handling its day-to-day operations and those individuals that involve. It could be volunteers. I think I heard someone say that they're the only paid staff person. You know, so the way in which we're structured is very, very different. Some of us have several paid staff. Some of us have very few. Some of us have none. You know, there's some nonprofits that are strictly operated by volunteers. So this Thrive space is the nonprofit is now demonstrating its working knowledge of some of what we're talking about as it relates to a particular principle. And then the current condition around sustain is that the nonprofit is capable of sustainability. So there are some things that it is doing that helps us to kind of know that, this nonprofit probably has longevity, and it may very well be able to move into being a self-sustaining organization. The in terms of recognition in the community as an asset, there are dollars and revenues that are coming through the nonprofit organizations. There's a track record of good evaluations and good and strong governance. There's respect, you know, within that nonprofit community in terms of that nonprofit organization. So, and then in terms of, like I said, you know, also respect as it relates to peers and constituents. Rebecca, I think I saw a question go up in the chat, I think.
Yeah, from Jill, what do we consider fundamental components of governance?
So we will go over those, but the way we have framed that for the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits in terms of its principles and practices is that there is a I would say cadre of practices that go along with each of these frames. So if you look, not to jump ahead too far, but I just want to tell you where you can go in the meantime. If you look in the Principles and Practices Guide on page 7, you'll see board governance. You'll see that principle, and then you'll see the practices that we have aligned with Build, Thrive, and Sustain. So that is the starting point of what we would consider to be practices that would lend itself to supporting your nonprofit around what those fundamentals are. Does that help? I don't know who had that question, but.
Yep, that was from Jill.
Okay.
Yep, she said yes.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Great. So our next part of just really learning more about the management conditions, you have a handout in your packet. It's titled Approach and Framework, and you also have a handout that's titled Management Conditions. Does everybody have that? I want to make sure you have it because we're about to go into breakout rooms. Thank you. Go up one more before this page. Here we go. Yes, right here. So we're going to set you up in breakout sessions. And in your breakout session, we want you to do 2 things. We want you to introduce yourselves because we're all meeting for the first time. And we want you to spend some time answering the question, what is the difference in each of these frames? You know, what are your thoughts about what the difference is of each frame? Now, I've explained it, you know, as we have it written, but what we would like for you to do is spend some time in dialogue about how you interpret these frames. And then if you would identify someone that will share maybe in about a minute to share what your group comes up with in terms of just kind of in general, what your perspective is on what the difference is of each frame. Okay, and Rebecca is going to manage putting you into breakout rooms.
Yes, yes. So is everybody clear on what we're asking y'all to do in your breakout sessions?
I would say I'm not 100% clear.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe I'm at 70%.
Okay. Is there anyone present with us that does understand, that you don't mind giving your perspective? I believe in sharing the platform. So is there anyone who gets it? Or do I just need to explain it again?
From my perspective, I think that first we're going to introduce ourselves, and then looking at each of the different boxes, thinking back to our organization, how do we interpret what's in these boxes? How do our organizations show up in these areas, in these conditions, right?
Yes.
And since we are introducing ourselves and since we're meeting each other for the first time, it gives us an opportunity to kind of springboard with each other where we currently are and then where we can grow. Hope that helps.
Thomas, does that help?
A bit. So are we only looking at the principles and practice approach and framework, or are we also supposed to be looking at each of the principles with the management conditions?
Good question. You're stopping right at management condition. You're not going any further. You're just stopping right at these 3 frames.
So the principles and approach and framework, practice, approach, and framework.
Yes, but you're focusing on just the Build, Thrive, and Sustain as ways to identify the current condition of your nonprofit.
Perfect. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Well done.
All
So
right.
we'll go into breakout rooms. We'll have 7 breakout rooms. And we'll be in those groups for Dr. Palmer for 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes is good. Yes.
So here we go. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good discussion in your breakout rooms. I'm actually going to be on mute for a while. I don't know if you can hear, there's some sawing in front of my house happening right now. Dr. Palmer, do you want to go ahead and facilitate the report backs? We can go through each breakout room. There were 7 total.
Okay. All right. So we had 7 breakout rooms, and we want to just hear briefly your what your conversation was about, and how you all interpret these management conditions or the framework to identify where your nonprofit might be in terms of build, thrive, and sustain. And I'm gonna just mute and just let whoever wants to volunteer first, and we'll just go from there.
I'll volunteer first to get it over with. So I had a very lovely group. I was fun to meet everybody more personally. We shared who we work with and a little bit about our organizations, and lo and behold, all of our organizations are at a different place, as is our experience with our organizations. So one of the main thing we talked about was how the current conditions of build, thrive, and sustain kind of correlate with the life cycle of a nonprofit organization. And we kind of put the infant child stage under build, and maybe the adolescent moving on into adulthood, young adulthood as the thrive. And then of course the sustain would be the adult or mature organization. So we kind of looked at it that way, but then we also recognize that even for the mature organization, there could be aspects of their organization that are still in infancy stage or adolescent stage, and vice versa. So although you can categorize your overall organization in one of these 3 current condition categories, there's probably aspects that are better or worse than how you're categorizing your overall agency, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does. And thank you all for that metaphor and that analogy. There are some models out there, and I've just made a note to share. I'll try to do that before the end of the session. There are some resources out there whereby there has been some studying done around the nonprofit life cycle, and it is built around 7 different frames. And so this is in that family of research in terms of that. So thank you all for your feedback. Thank you. Who's next or wants to go next?
I'll go next. I was fortunate to be in group number 4 with Giselle and Stephanie and Tamika. And it was interesting because Giselle and I are actually in the same community. We are in High Point. And she and I both are, I guess, to use that analogy, we are both, as Terry used, we are in the mature stages of our organizations, which, at first I'm like, hey, you know what? My organization's been around for over 100 years. We've been doing this, so we're good with the building, the thriving, sustainability. that is the area that really concerns me when I took my role is what is United Way of Greater High Point going to look like 10 to 15 years from now? Because we all know in the world of nonprofit that charitable giving is changing. The whole landscape is changing. My organization in particular really enjoyed a monopoly on nonprofits for years and years, way before I came here. And United Way was very much the only game in town. And that's certainly not the case anymore. And so it has been my mission when I took the position to really look at that and recognize how would my organization look relative in the coming years and how do we maintain that sustainability. But then on the flip side too, my group talked about that while here I was thinking my organization's in the wonderful world of sustainability and, I got all these other things figured out, COVID has pushed my organization, and I would imagine all of our organizations, back into some different areas. Like I still have got the build, I'm good on that, but the thrive, totally out the window because of COVID. I had to look at day-to-day operation, my board, that management and governance. Here we were meeting virtually. I've noticed that our board meetings are not nearly as engaged. There's not that extemporaneous conversation, which is so much of where the networking, building of great ideas comes from. And so it's a whole new ball game. So I'm back in that middle square for my organization. And I think that my group kind of agreed too, that it's a fluid situation. While you think you've checked that box for one, oh no, wait a minute, maybe not. So that was group 4.
Thank you, Jane, and good to see you. Yes, this idea of things just changing, this was happening before COVID, right? And for some nonprofits, things were kind of consistent and predictable. But for a lot of nonprofits, as Jane mentioned, that wasn't the case. That they were already operating in this space of change happening by the nanosecond. But this does give us, again, that the opportunity to reflect, and that's a part of what an assessment is. It's not for a grade, but it is for us to assess where we are and to make some decisions about how we want to grow and develop. In your packet, you have the handout or the document. It's titled Principles and Practices, Approach and Framework. If you look at that second sentence, that second line at the very top in the little narrative area, notice how the Center for Nonprofits has couched what we're doing. We have identified the current condition in terms of thinking about it. It's the present state of a nonprofit's ability to manage growth and development. And that's what Jane just described from my perspective, is that this idea of where we are right now and how do we pivot when what we are accustomed to changes or is modified for whatever reason. Every day is different. There are things that we anticipate and there are things that are unanticipated. And we are expected to manage our nonprofit no matter what. And so thank you all, group 4. I think Jamie said that was the group you're in, for that takeaway. I also put in the chat a book. It's titled The 5 Life Stages of Nonprofit Organizations. This is one of my favorite. Because it has a lot of pictures in it, but it has images and visuals to help you to kind of see how nonprofits evolve. And it goes along, I think, with what Terry was saying, and then it kind of aligns with what Jane was saying. So I wanted to share that resource with you. I think it's about $20 if you get a paperback. So it's a really quick reference, and it really does go along with what it is that we're talking about. Next group.
I can go. This is Julie, and I think we were group 5, although I'm not totally certain. So we were a kind of a diverse group, and we had some similar discussions around some of our organizations are older and traditionally and sustained, but we also acknowledge that there was a lot of room or that we desired maybe some rebuilding or add-ons. So we did, mostly people were feeling like thrive and sustain was the best description of their organizations, but also recognizing the cycle and wanting to, stay and sustain by working through the cycle when needed.
Thank you, Julie. I'm going to go ahead to the next person just for in terms of time. So next person up.
I can go for group 7 if the group 7 doesn't mind. I will say that group 7 spent most of our time socializing and getting to know each other. So we needed an extra 5 minutes. But a lot of what we discussed has already been mentioned. I think most of us fell between that thrive and sustain space as well, which has been mentioned. Also, a lot of the groups that shared have been impacted by COVID. And so just, again, I know that's been shared already. And so, looking at how we've moved forward, but had to step back and I think who was on my team that works with the food security group, that was a backpack program and had to regroup and see how they could get food to table. Thank you. Sorry, Ashton. Had to get food to children delivered to their doorstep. So having to reevaluate, which has caused them to kind of look through different things. And so I think that the points that have been made about the cycle and where we fit and having to learn. And also I would note some of us are new to the space as well. And so having to really get our heads wrapped around where we are. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Kelly Claybrook, and I just joined as the new leader of the Foundation for Health Leadership and Innovation. And I come from a completely corporate background, no nonprofit. So really a lot of us are having to get our heads around. So that's why we're so excited to be here. But yeah, I think that's where we were. And we spent a lot of time socializing and getting to know each other.
So next time we all need to go to group 7. I think I need to make my way to group 7 for the party, right, Kelly? Next group.
I'll go for group 3. And so in our group, our organizations ran the gamut. So we had an organization with no paid staff, or others, they run completely off of volunteer work, to organization that had been around for more than 30 years, I believe. But the interesting thing I think that came up out of our meeting was the need to innovate, and that which has already been named, but that without innovation, your organization can actually move backwards instead of moving forward along the spectrum.
Thank you, Michelle. And we definitely know as a result of COVID, we really learned a whole lot about how to be innovative and how to do things differently. I would also imagine for some of us, we were able to also reacquaint ourselves with some of our staff and volunteers in terms of what they know how to do, because there were some things that we've had to utilize to get the work done that we didn't before. And all of a sudden, a person or a staff person or a volunteer that maybe wasn't necessarily in the forefront is now in the forefront, because they know how to navigate utilizing some of those innovative options that we have to do the work that we're doing. So thank you, group 3. Next group. I think we've got 2 more groups to go.
I can speak for group 2. I guess everyone jump in if you want to. But one thing that was very helpful to me is that we talked about how these different principles can be at different stages for various principles. You can look at the organization as a whole, certainly, but then also maybe for board management, we're more and more of a thrive, and maybe for financial, we're sustaining, or maybe we're building. So it could be different levels for the different principles.
Absolutely. And again, when we look at some of the other resources that are in the literature, if you will, we'll see how these frames align with those. For example, the book I shared with you, there may be maybe a handful of these types of frameworks, but in essence, it is to do, Rebecca, exactly what your group has identified, that yes, you may have 100 principles, right? I know that's a scary thought, but you may have 100 principles and be at different levels and at different areas of growth, different levels of growth, different levels of development. And the expectation for those of you who are on the call and you're the ED or you're the president and CEO, the expectation is that you're managing all of that, right? I know that's a conversation for another type session, but you're expected to manage all of that. So the next group up. Is that it? Is that all 7? Okay.
I think we have 1 or 2 groups left,
Okay.
if I'm counting correctly.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 that shared, and that's okay if we don't do the other one. That's okay. All right. Okay. So just kind of moving on, we're going to do one more thing before we take a break. I know I said after that we were going to take a break, but I kind of changed my mind. So one more thing before we go to break. I want us to utilize what we've heard and what you talked about in your breakout sessions. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the frames to assess what we consider to be kind of ground level capacity, a basic level of capacity for your nonprofit. So the next pages in your handout document are all 12 nonprofits. Can we share the handout document real quick, just so I can show everybody what they're going to be using?
Yeah. That up.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm taking over from Leslie. She's
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So we'll go ahead and share this.
Okay. So you're going to use, Rebecca's going to help me out here. Go back up to the top, Rebecca, the top. You've got a lot of pages here, I know. So I want to show you. Keep going beyond that. Okay, keep going. Right here. No, go. One more. I mean, the other way. Okay, right here. All right, so you're going to, this is the information you're going to use. You're going to go from here, principle 1, all the way to principle 12. Then you're going to stop, and then there's going to be a worksheet after this. So you can scroll on. So that's principle 1, and keep going. And you're going to use yes. This is what you're using right here. And you're going to stop right here. You're going to use this tool. You're going to use this worksheet. And the previous pages are the 12. And you are going to assess the capacity along the primary practice. And you're going to indicate where you are with that primary practice. Make sense? Any questions about that? So you're going to complete that. And then once we do that, we'll just have a real brief chat about it, and then we'll take a break. Okay? So Rebecca, we're going to take maybe 5-10 minutes for the group to do this, and then we'll come back.
Sounds good.
All right. And you can go back to gallery view now.
Okay.
Okay. And we are here if you have questions.
Yeah, I'm going to pause recording.
Okay. On your worksheet, you should be able to count, right, the principles, or identify the principles, the number of principles you have under build in terms of where you are in your current condition. you should also be able to identify the same with thrive and then with sustain. And then the next step for you, if we were to stop right here, would be to do more of a qualitative type of exercise or task. And that would just simply be, or practically be, where do you want to start? You know, you're looking at your build, thrive, sustain. You're looking across the 12 principles, and you have a sense of how, of where you are in terms of the current condition. So where do you begin? Only you can really answer that in terms of what do you have the right capacity to begin working on? You know, what things do you have in place that could allow you to focus on one of the, focus on the sustain principle as opposed to focusing on a different principle. Or maybe you identify that, hey, I can work on 2 of these at the same time because they operate in tandem or because they align with each other. So it's really a conversation that you're either having with yourself, although I know that's lonely when you have to have a conversation with yourself, but a conversation with yourself or with your board chair or with one of your lead staff members or with your volunteers, if that's a group of individuals that are really helping you carry out what is necessary. So if we were to stop here, we would be focusing more or less on the overarching practice for those principles. But we're going to go a step further, and we're going to assess the capacity of our nonprofit across these frames for 6 principles and the accompanying practices. I know that was a mouthful, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to study, we're going to hone in on 6 of the principles as it relates to the Institute and what our focus is over the next 4 weeks. And we're going to identify specifically which practices, the current condition of our nonprofit based on practices, not just the overarching primary practice for that principle. So what we want to do is, I want us to use the chat, I think, for this. And Rebecca, I know I just added something. You all will get accustomed to me doing this. I'll add something right in the middle of our work based on what we're doing. But what I want you to put in the chat for me is I want you to put how many builds you had. So we're going to start with build. And I just want you to put in the chat. You don't have to put which principle, but just put how many builds. I'm just gonna eyeball it, and it's going fast, but I'm trying to eyeball it and just kind of count. So I see a 0, I see 1. I'm up to maybe about 25.
Hey, Pamela.
Yes.
Hi, this is Giselle Mancy. So for the build, I kind of based it, well, I mean, I felt pretty good in all of them, but like, I feel because I'm in this new role in the past 3 months, when I went through it, I felt like, okay, we have it, but personally, me, myself, perhaps I need to be very educated on it. And so like, it's in place. I just don't know what it is. So with that, so I kind of made it as a personal, like, and I made notes like, I need to have a better understanding of this, or I need to be exposed to this. So would that kind of also change the way we like judge or do this assessment?
Yes, it could. And I think you have handled that very well, because your ability to identify what's happening is going to impact how you rate these. And when we do a capacity assessment, it does give us the opportunity to reflect on ourselves as the individual completing the assessment, because there may be some elements of what you're trying to assess. You couldn't assess it anyway because you don't know a lot about it in general, maybe in terms of skill, background, expertise, but you may not know what it is because you haven't been there long enough to actually know. So yes, that we do take that into consideration. So you're okay with doing that. You know, it's a self-assessment, right? of your organization. So, you know, you're going to have, it's going to be that for some that you may or may not necessarily know enough. And you may not necessarily be able to hone in on what that is. But what it does do is it helps you to know what to look for, so that when it shows up, you can at least say, you know, the North Carolina Center told me this was gonna happen, right? Or that this may be a part of what it is that you might have to experience as it relates to you and your role. Tell me the name of your organization, Giselle.
I'm with the Latino Family Center in High Point, but I'm under the umbrella of the YWCA. So
yes.
we're together. And so I just became the director 3 months ago. So it's been a learning experience. And I mean, I love this because I was able to, like, I kind of put it under the eyes of my organization versus the YWCA. So I kind of used it as in like, okay, I need to be better educated on this area and that area. I know we have it. I know it's happening. I know because we're going and we're strong. But me personally, I feel like I need to be better educated on certain topics to be able to say, oh, I feel good about this, right?
Yes, yes. And self-assessing is a part of the reflection. Yes, definitely. And tell Heidi I said hello.
I will.
All right. So so we should have, where were we? We were with Bill, and I couldn't count because I was talking and I was doing other stuff. So I missed the count. I don't know how many builds there were. Let's try Thrive. Let's see if I can keep up this time. Rebecca, you might have to help me. I'm trying. Okay, okay. Let's see, 2. I don't see any zeros, so. Okay, okay. Okay.
I like that, Terry. For Thrive, but pushing this one.
I saw that. Yes.
It seems like we have more, somewhat higher numbers than the build.
Yeah.
Lower numbers in the build.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Let's do sustain. Let's see how many. Wouldn't it be great if these numbers that we were seeing was money coming to our nonprofit? Wouldn't that be great? Like in the thousands or something? That would be great.
We can make that happen.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. I see. Out of the 12, I can see that. Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Looks like we're back to those.
Oh, good. I see 11. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right. Thank you all for participating in that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. I promised a break. And so we're going to take a break and then we will come back. And what we're going to do when we come back is we're going to assess the capacity of the 6 principals for the Institute that we're focusing on, but we're going to look at all of the practices for each one. So you will need the worksheet for that. You'll need your handout packet information to do that. So let's take a break. It's Rebecca, let's just say 11:25.
Okay.
Okay, since it's 11:18.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good. All right, we'll see you back
Okay.
here in a few.
Introduced to the 12 principles, in addition to the primary practice of each. And we have also spent some time working with the frames around the management conditions of a nonprofit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the specific practices for each of the principles. And we're going to focus on 6 of these. Rebecca, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're going to focus on the capacity assessment. So in your packet, you have another worksheet, and it looks pretty much just like the one we use for the basic, but it should be titled Principals Capacity Assessment in your packet. I just want to make sure everybody has that in their packet of information. Is there anyone who can't find that worksheet? Okay.
So it's the same one?
Yes, it's at the, let's see, is it at the,
I don't have one that says what you just said.
you don't have, do you just have the basic one?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we're going to, then go to the, it's after that worksheet that you just completed, after that basic capacity worksheet you completed, and you're gonna have what is titled Practices Capacity Assessment. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
It's expanded. So you've got, so you've got principal, hold on, let me jump back over on my screen. You've got principal 1 there, and then you should have all 12.
Yes.
Okay, you have all 12. Okay, so if we don't have that, this is how we'll do it. We will use this actual document, the expanded, and we're going to focus on 6 of these. And I'm going to tell you which 6 that we're going to focus on. And I'm going to have you just mark the practice on that actual document. So if you're looking at principle 1, right? And it's advocacy and civic engagement, or let's go to fundraising. Let's use that example. Let's go to fundraising. That would be principle number 5. So on your document, your handout, you're going to indicate in terms of where your organization is for each of, you're going to mark each of those practices. Does everybody have? You're only going to check one. You're only going to check one frame. So you're going to indicate for fundraising which of these practices you need to work on. That's how we're using this assessment.
Is this where we are in our organization currently? Because pre-COVID was different than,
yes,
than what we're living in now.
It's where you are now. Okay. Who's speaking? I'm switching back and forth. Right now.
I'm sorry. It's Rosalind Fulton with Community Theater of Greensboro.
Okay, Rosalind. Yes. So you're going to indicate here. You're going to check where you are in terms of build. So you're going to indicate which of these that you actually have in practice now.
Currently. Okay.
Currently. Yes. Okay. Currently. So you're going to indicate what you are actually doing. You're going to check those off, which is going to leave.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Palmer. I think some folks are want to make sure everyone's looking at the correct document.
Okay.
It looks like principle number 5, fundraising, you'll see across the top. On the handouts that we sent, it's page 16. If you're looking at the PDFs, is that correct?
And Rebecca, if you go to the next slide, it's going to be fundraising.
Yeah.
And it's going to be there. It just looks a little different.
Yeah.
But it's the same information. So we're going to focus on the principles of board governance, financial management, fundraising, human resources, program design, management and evaluation, and strategic planning. Those are going to be the 6 that we're going to assess in this next hour. Okay. And we're going to do this electronically.
Yes.
But you also have it hard copy. That's why I was just kind of having you to get a jump start.
Right.
And I want to make sure I gave you the right instruction for this. So Rebecca is going to share a link. Am I right, Rebecca? So you have a hard copy and you also have
share, make sure I share it with everyone and not just
Mhm.
one person. So
Yep.
this link is for SurveyMonkey.
Yes.
And it will take you through, for each of these 6 principles, it will take you through each of the practices to rank and rate them, build, thrive, and sustain for these conditions. And what we'll be doing is churning out those results and sending them to you by email between now and the next session, so that you'll have the benefit of seeing the results back in time. Results, a good indicator for her to see where folks are in terms of these different areas.
Rebecca,
And then we
is
did
it possible for
we
you
do
to
have,
open the, go ahead.
you want me to open it to show them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're supposed to be doing this now.
Yes. Yes. So you have the link. In the chat. And Rebecca is showing you on the screen the electronic version. She'll come back here in a minute. And keep in mind, this assessment, this electronics, actually it's the worksheet, we just made it electronic.
Mm-hmm. Start share. So it will look like this.
Here we go.
You'll fill out the first section and then you'll go through each. It won't let me go. Well, maybe it will. I don't think it will let me continue on.
If you probably got to fill it in, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll have to fill in this first section, and then it'll take you through each page, each principle that we're covering, the 6. And we did have the option for some focused content music, if y'all would like that. We have 2 options, and I was planning to put a poll in here so you all could vote.
You can go back and do that.
But my poll thing is not working.
Oh, okay.
So we do have, yeah, we have the option of some rainy day jazz music, which was really perfect for yesterday when we had rain, but it's still a nice list. Or there's a chill hop for spring mix, if you all are familiar with chill hop. It's a nice soundtrack for working and concentrating. So feel free to plug in here if you have a strong preference for one or the other, and we'll see what our responses are. And if you need quiet to concentrate, mute or turn down your volume.
I see chill hop.
We got chill hop coming through.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, Jill, yes, that's what you're doing. So you're going to use the SurveyMonkey link though, and it's going to take you through each of these 6 principles, and you're going to indicate the current condition of your nonprofit for each principle, but now it's expanded because you have more practices that you can choose from. Does that help? I think that was Jill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
We're
it takes too long to unmute. So on the survey, it says under build, for instance, it gives us a statement and then it says select what you'd like to work on in the next year.
That's right. That's it. Yeah. That's right.
And it can be more than one answer under each one, or are we just focusing on one?
Yes, it should prompt you that you can
More than one?
check off all the ones that you need to
Okay.
work on. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. And please feel free to unmute and ask questions. I'm right here with you, so
Yeah.
feel free to do that.
I have a question. So if in the last exercise we were at build, then we're only checking things in build right now.
That may not be the case because you weren't privy to the others. You know, you weren't privy to the other practices. So we're honing in on the practices now. So we're going a little deeper.
When we did this one?
With that one, you were just focusing on the primary practice in terms of your current management condition, kind of a level 1. Now you're going a little deeper and you're going to indicate the practices specifically that you want to work on. You didn't have all those practices in the previous.
Right. But if we said we were only in build for a particular practice, then, or principle, then should we only be checking things under that area? Like if we said we were only build?
You can check across the board because you're indicating what you would like to work on in the next year. And it could fall under another frame.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not checking what we already do, checking the things we want to grow toward.
That's right.
Okay.
If I could go back to the question in the survey. The survey has the question, the prompt for you.
So just to touch on what you were just saying, I didn't check anything under build because we've already, sorry about the dogs. We've already built, but it says, so I didn't check anything under build, but it says this question requires an answer. So I guess you do need to check something in each of the build, thrive, and sustain sections.
I think it's the question in general, the overarching question. Will it not let you keep going?
Nope.
Okay.
I hit next and it took me back up to build.
It wouldn't let me either, so I just picked one of each.
Yeah.
Okay, do that. So sorry about that.
It's moving pretty fluidly for me. The way I'm looking at it is, like you said, we're taking a deeper dive into each of the different practices. So knowing that across the board, I'll need to, in terms of for which one was I just looking at? Strategic planning, for instance, right? I'll need to be able to check through. There's some things in build that I still need to refine. There's some things in the thrive area that I still need to refine. There's some things in sustain that I still need to refine. So I need to go all across the board and look at how all of those practices are going to come full circle for me to be able to say proficiently that I'm performing well in that particular principle.
Yes.
Am I understanding that well?
Yes, and or these are the areas that you want to spend more time working
that I want to improve. Yeah, because that's actually the main question, right? Like, what do I want to focus on improving? So all across the board in those three frames, I still need to touch on some of those pieces in each of those three frames.
That's correct. And what some are saying is that they don't need to focus on anything under build, let's just say.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, Rebecca, we need to make a note of that because we hadn't run into that.
No, we haven't.
we haven't run into no one having anything under build. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll work on that.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and play.
And again, please ask questions. That's why we're here. So, yep.
Okay, so Dr. Palmer, I have a question.
Yes.
My family foundation, we don't do any fundraising. So how do I skip that whole section? Or should I just check a box in each build, thrive, and sustain?
Let me go to fundraising. Hold on one sec. Let me grab mine. I'm gonna see how we might be able to, there's another note, Rebecca. Let's see. Yeah, that is, yeah, if it's not going to let you move on, it would. I'm trying to see if there's anything that you could do without it necessarily being directly related to, so you wouldn't need a donor base. Do you get contributions from any source?
No.
Okay, okay, I got you.
Just give it away. I could do adhere to policies that govern receipt, disposal, and management of all gifts and
Okay.
grants.
Okay.
But
Okay, I was just trying to think, I'm looking to see what could work in that. You're not writing grants.
No.
Okay, you're not. If you took the word donor out of, I'm under thrive now, we'll come back to build.
Yeah. Okay.
But let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth bullet down, foster networks and relationships.
Yeah.
That might be, it's a stretch. That might be one we could do there.
I could do that one.
Okay. And maybe if we take the fundraising language out, let's see, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, number 7 under thrive.
Monitor funds over teacher.
Maybe, you tell me.
Monitor regional processing teacher adheres to data.
So if we
I mean,
took donors
basically,
out,
that's just saying that it needs to make sure they're a 501c3 for us to give them the money. Is it kind of what that means?
Is this 1, 2, 3, 4,
That's
5?
the seventh one. Yeah.
2, 3,
Monitor
4, 5. The 6.
Oh, the 6th one.
The 6th one, yeah. The 6th one. I was thinking if we took the fundraising language out. If we took out, but you'll have to tell me because you know more about what your organization does than I do. So if we.
Yeah, no, we don't really need to do, we're pretty.
Okay, I got you.
So I just
so we
check the foster networks and then.
Okay, and then what about under build? What did you do? Adhere to policies?
I didn't do anything under build yet.
Okay, hold on.
But.
Maybe number 3, if we took the fundraising language out of it.
Or the number 4, honor donor wishes for recognition, confidentiality, and anonymity.
Okay.
Because we don't.
All right.
A lot of times we don't want the recognition, so I guess that could.
Okay.
And then the last one, sustain.
Let's see.
No.
Nope.
No.
Nope. We could leverage resources instead of dollars.
Yeah.
For the last one.
Yeah, but there's no matching gifts from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we could do
just,
that.
I want you to know that so that when you look at your data, you're like,
Yes. And Rebecca, can you just put up, Ashley, tell us the name of your organization. Can we just pull up their website real quick? I just want to see.
yeah, it's
I want
the
to.
Simala Foundation.
Oh, Simala.
Yeah.
Tell Susan I said hello. Susan
I will.
Schwartz, right?
I will,
Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of what I'm looking at and I'm learning now, I'm the incoming board chair.
Oh, okay.
I've been on the board for 25 years, haven't been the board chair yet, so it's my turn.
Okay.
But
Okay.
a lot of what I'm learning here is stuff that we've had in practice, for years. So
Yeah.
it's and some of it applies and some of it doesn't apply, but I don't want to mess up your data.
No. Thank you. Thank you for the heads up. Thank you. Go to about. I was a fellow, sponsored by the SEMA Foundation years ago for the Institute of Political Leadership.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So Martha and Caesar were my grandparents.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go.
And Community
Okay.
Theater of Greensboro is a grantee of the Simula Foundation.
Well, there you go.
Over the, I think, 30 or so years, sorry, I've got five dogs.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. I just wanted to, as we were going through her assessment, I just kind of wanted to wrap my head around what we were talking about. And sorry, everybody else, for the chatter. just want to make sure I'm helpful so that we all have a really good experience, right? So that's. Is so that we can do the work in real time so that there's no homework. And so I hope today was a good demonstration of how we try to do that. Is everybody good? I don't want to keep going if we're not ready. Okay. We're good to go? Okay, I see thumbs up, I see yes, I see all of those things. Great. Good. Thank you all so much. So, in terms of that task, as Rebecca shared, before our next session, you will get your individual results back. And you will be able to take a look at that before we move into our content. So we'll begin next week with looking at the results and the findings from what you shared as a group, as a cohort, but then you'll have your individual information that you can refer to. And the idea is that we will use that as our compass for you to be able to help me to share and to train around those areas that you want to work on in the next year. So we want the sessions to matter to you, and we want you to be able to get from those sessions what you need in order for you to begin to build capacity, or at least to think about how you're going to go about building capacity of your nonprofit in those individual areas. So anticipate that from us. Before I move into what is partially our closing, share with me what your thoughts are so far with how we've set the stage and what we're planning for the upcoming sessions, and in particular, what it is that we've been able to focus on today to get us kind of warmed up and started. And I'm going to mute myself and just let you chime in as you see fit.
Well, I just stated in the chat box, I appreciate that it's very practical and allows us to kind of be where we are with our organization. And I like the concept that it's kind of hands-on work.
I think during the survey, there were some questions in there that I had not thought about. So it allowed me to say, oh yeah, we do need to work on this, or we do need to figure this out. So I appreciate the survey having more than just a blanket statement or a blanket question. It allowed us to think a little more and beyond.
Go ahead. I appreciate the way that the materials have been put together that are going to allow us to take a deep dive into a number of really important areas in terms of everything that we have to do with this foundational work in building our organizations and looking at the capacity. So I think the pace is good, and the material is really giving us a lot of things to think about. Thank you very much.
I am very excited because I think going into the program, I thought we would just be looking at it from a holistic, this is the way a nonprofit should function, and this is what, but to know that it's kind of a tailored program for each of us and our own organizations, and how we can figure out, you know, how we need to best move forward and which areas. So that's exciting to me, and I appreciate so much, because even though I've been with my organization 14 years, you know, no one's perfect and we need to grow. And I'm excited about that. Thank you.
I'd like to hear,
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was somebody else going?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Terry.
I think I might be one of the newer organizations. So when I was completing the survey, I was checking off an awful lot of things. And by the time I got to the end, it seemed very overwhelming. So one of the things I hope you can help us focus on is how to prioritize when there are so many things that we need to do, and we wish we could do them all at once because they all seem very important. Yeah, how we prioritize what needs to get done before the other thing. So that's where I'm really going to need some guidance.
Yeah, I agree with what Rosalind and others were saying. You know, we thought we were one place, you know, and then when you like built out and saw all the different descriptions and see where we were different from my perspective as a director, not as the executive director, it was really helpful to me as well.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit, Dr. Palmer, would you say that in thinking about these different conditions that they will build upon each other? And so when you're thinking about prioritizing, does it make sense to start with some of those that you may have in build and thrive before you might move to the ones in sustain? Or are there instances where you would go right for sustain?
Yeah, so there are some of the practices where they're unique to a frame, and so they're not dependent on tasks having or capacity building having taken place in another area. So yes, that could very well be the case, and that may be a way for us all to think about our exercise today, getting ready for next week. Is, you know, which of those practices can you work on in isolation, so to speak, of another? And so that could also help to determine that prioritization. You know, We might really want to work on a particular practice, but just can't because we have to build the capacity in another area before we can do that. So yes. Thank you, Michelle. I see your comment there. And we can definitely do that. Yes. Any other just thoughts about just what we've done so far and kind of getting settled in? We do have four more days together, 4 more almost half days together. So just wanted to kind of get a sense of that. So Rebecca, if you could, as we're again, just have a couple more things I want us to cover before we end our first session. If you could take us back to the map in the PowerPoint, and if we could do the annotate function again, if you could walk us through that again. Just kind of as we make our exit today, I just want us to revisit where we all are in terms of this being in North Carolina. So you'll be using that function, and Rebecca will walk you through that again.
Okay, so what you want to do is you'll go up to your more at the top screen of your.
I think she froze just a little bit, so I'll just keep going. You're at the top of your screen and you are deciding if you're going to pick a symbol or if you're going to actually draw that out. Rebecca, you froze just a little bit, so I just kind of jumped in and just kept talking there.
Right, it's my internet.
Yeah, as we're putting in our, now just from observation, the first time we did this, I saw more stars. This time I'm seeing more hearts. Is that an indication of how we're feeling after after a few hours? I'm psychoanalyzing here. Because I did switch from a star to a heart as well, Julie. I don't have any reasoning behind it that I can think of right now, but I switched also. Okay. So say again, Rebecca.
I said we'll blame it on groupthink.
You said
we're all thinking.
There you go. Yeah. So again, so here we are in terms of just where we are all positioned around the state of North Carolina. Let me just say that we are so glad that you decided to participate in our institute, and we're looking forward to the remainder of our sessions. Please keep the questions coming because you may think of some things in between sessions that you want to inquire about, either with me or someone else in the group. We can learn from each other. So it's not just about one person having all the answers. We can definitely learn from each other. And look how we're representing the state of North Carolina in terms of just building our capacity and just wanting to do and give our nonprofits the best that we have to offer. And so the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits is, as we mentioned earlier, we're in our second statewide cohort. And as Steve mentioned earlier, we have been offering capacity building in Guilford County, utilizing the Institute concept, but the capacity building framework is originated with the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. And that's an essential kind of add-on that the center has been able to offer to you today and throughout our time together. So
The last thing I will say, and then I'll turn it back over to Rebecca and Jean to officially close us out. Rebecca, we can go back to gallery now. The last thing that I will kind of share is what's coming up in terms of the sessions to come. Our next one will be board governance. We'll have two topics: board governance and program design, management, and evaluation. The last thing I will say, I think we've shared our takeaways. I think I have a sense of, at least beginning to have a sense of where we are. We'll have another opportunity to do introductions in a different way next week. So we're going to all get to know each other as we move along. And again, I appreciate you selecting us and look forward to working with you in the coming weeks. Rebecca and or Jean, I'm going to pass it on to you.
I can jump in for a quick minute, Rebecca. I just want to say thank you all. What an affirmation of this work that we're doing. I just really appreciated hearing how much you appreciated the practicality of this tool. And when we envisioned it, we were hoping that this would be a tool that executives, leaders, board chairs could put in their own hands and help to really understand best how they're doing within their organization or how their organization is doing. I envisioned myself as an executive director sitting in my office by myself, going through this and really having the time to think through how could I move my organization through Build, Thrive, Sustain. So you've affirmed that feedback, and we appreciate any that you can continue to give us throughout this whole program. Dr. Palmer, as always, thank you for your wonderful facilitation, and just appreciate all of you being here. Back to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Jean. Thank you, Dr. Palmer. I did place the session evaluation in the chat. If you have time, because we're wrapping up about 10 minutes early, if you'd like to go ahead and complete that right now, it's really helpful for us to know your feedback in as we plan the next 4 sessions, because as we're building on each week, we like to have the feedback that you all provide. If you don't have time to complete it today, there's no problem with that. It'll be included in the wraparound email that we'll send out. Let's see, today's Tuesday. So our goal is to get that out by close of business on Thursday. So you'll have a link to the session recording, the slideshow, a link to the contact list. If anyone is not comfortable sharing their contact information, please just privately email me and let me know that, and I'd be happy to leave it off. I don't want to share anyone's contact information if they're not comfortable with that. But it's nice for folks to connect with one another outside of these sessions and collaborate and partner and whatnot. So that will also be included. I've taken some notes of things we want to improve, and we'll also be sharing with you separately, privately, in an email your responses to the survey today. So you'll have that going into next week's session as well. So with that being said, any final questions or anything you'd like to share in the chat? Everyone good? Great, thumbs up, that's great. Well, I'm really excited about this cohort. I'm really excited to see where the next few weeks takes us, and really appreciate your time today and your investment in not only your own professional development, but the development and capacity for your organization. So well done. Keep doing the good work. And we'll see you all next Tuesday.
Yeah, see you next week. Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.